Hey, what's going on, AP World? We have a video for you today on APUSH review rebellions and conflict in the colonial era. Do not forget about these simply because they happened so long ago. The ones I'll be talking about today have appeared on APUSH exams. So let's get going. We're going to start with Bacon's Rebellion, probably the most significant rebellion that occurred prior to the American Revolution. Now, what was it? Well, it was a rebellion of poor, landless whites led by this guy, Nathaniel Bacon, in Jamestown, Virginia, which was the first permanent English settlement in North America. Now, take a look at Bacon. If that is not one of the coolest mustaches and goatees you'll ever see, then I don't really know what is. So let's talk about why it occurred. Well, Bacon and his other farmers, they lived further west of Jamestown, and there was lots of conflict with the Native Americans there. The governor of Virginia, Governor Berkeley, Bacon felt was too friendly with the Native Americans, and also there were a lot of Eastern farm owners who were rich and had a lot of political power, and Bacon resented this. And there is Governor Berkeley. So let's figure out what happened. Well, Bacon and his followers, they eventually burned down Jamestown, and Bacon almost takes control of Virginia. He's very upset. Ooh, look at that. You see what I did there? Jamestown. Ooh, burned it down. Okay. Eventually, Bacon dies of dysentery, and Berkeley is finally able to restore control. But there's a lot of upheaval in the process. So let's talk about the significance here. Well, a couple things you need to know. One, it demonstrates class tensions, most notably between the rich and the poor. Keep in mind, a lot of the people who were a part of this rebellion were poor and landless whites. It was also a rebellion against authority, which will be a theme that we will see. And also, the most important thing, if you ever write an essay about the development of slavery in North America, you cannot write this essay without including Bacon's Rebellion. From this moment forward, there's a movement towards slavery because slaves are never given their freedom. So there's no worry about them eventually rebelling once they become free. So please understand that after Bacon's Rebellion, there is a huge increase towards slavery. All right, the Pueblo Revolt, which is also known as Pope's Revolt, appears less frequently than Bacon, but still does appear. So, what is it? It's a Native American rebellion against the Spanish in New Mexico. Keep in mind, this is not the English, but this is still just as important. Sometimes you'll see essays talking about the Spanish colonial settlements. So, why did it occur? Well, we have a couple issues here. One, we have 2,000 Spanish, which are essentially controlling 30,000 Pueblos. That's a little bit of a mismatch there. The Spanish priests and government tried to suppress the Native American practices that were inconsistent with Christianity. This is something we will see much later in America in the 1880s. Many Europeans are not comfortable with some of the rituals and practices of Native Americans. The Spanish demanded a tribute, which basically is they had to pay money, the Native Americans, and they also demanded labor from the natives. And eventually the natives are just going to get upset. And here is essentially the encomienda system, which is forcing Native Americans to work. So what happens? The Pope, who is a native religious leader, here he is, he kills hundreds of Spanish settlers and forced the Spanish to flee. Now, they actually flee for many years. In Spain, it's not until 1696, 16 years later, that Spain regains control. However, once they do, the Spanish kind of change their ways a little bit. They want to assimilate or kind of bring them in, bring the Native Americans into their culture instead of forcing it. And also the Pueblos were given more freedoms from the Spanish. All right, the Stono Rebellion, a very important slave rebellion, is a rebellion in South Carolina involving roughly 100 slaves. So why did it occur? Well, pretty easy to figure out. Slaves were resisting their place in society. It really sucked being a slave. So a lot of slaves are going to rebel. What happens? They capture weapons from a local armory or farm, I believe, or store, one of those three, and they killed many whites and they sought to flee to Spanish Florida. They wanted to go to Spanish Florida because they would be free then. They would be out of the English colonies. They were not successful in their attempt to escape to Florida, and most of those that were involved in this rebellion were actually killed. If you're down near Charleston, South Carolina, about 30 to 40 minutes away, that's where the Stono Rebellion occurred. And you'll see these signs there. The significance, and this is very important. Every time there will be a slave rebellion, especially the ones we'll see later. I mentioned Nat Turner and the Denmark VC here. You'll learn about them much later. Every time there's a slave rebellion, Southerners are going to clamp down on slaves and make harsher laws called slave codes. So they're going to really restrict their behavior even more to prevent future rebellions. Please know that, guys. Any essay about slave rebellions, you need to mention that. Wow, the AP readers, they'll love it. All right, lesser known rebellion is Leisler's rebellion. It's an attempted rebellion led by Jacob Leisler of New York, and there is a statue of him. I'd like a statue of me someday. That'd be pretty sweet. So Leisler sought to challenge colonial elites. Kind of like Bacon, he resented that there were people who had more power than him in New York City. So he raises a militia and claims himself head of the New York government. Works for about 2 years and then he's killed. And the significance, again, this demonstrated tensions between the wealthy elite and the lower classes. Although he was kind of somewhere in between and maybe even more of the elite, but not the upper elite, which he wanted. But a lot of his followers were part of the lower classes. All right, Salem witch trials. You're saying to yourself, this isn't a rebellion. You'll see why in a minute. I have it up here. So let's talk about what it was. It was hysteria that swept over New England in the 1680s and 1690s. Well, it started because some young girls are behaving in a strange manner and they accuse some local servants of witchcraft. This starts off bedlam. It is insanity. And it quickly spread to many others in the colonies. The whole town of Salem is up in arms. Everybody's accusing everybody of being witches. So what happens? Well, most of the accused were middle-class women and some had property. So there are theories now, historians have theories that perhaps these people were accused of being witches because they were single women who had property, and if they were killed, their property could now go to somebody else. So there potentially could have been, this could have been a hunt simply for land. Now, let's also take a look at this. And the accusers, the ones who are accusing the ones of being of witches, tended to be less wealthy than the accused. And see if you can determine anything based on this map. So the triangles are the accused, the squares are the accusers. Do you notice anything? Most of the accusers are from the western portion, and most of the accused are from the eastern portion. So again, there's this theme of east versus west here. And this demonstrated, the significance of this is it demonstrated tensions between the rich and the poor, and also exposed tensions over the role of women. It was very threatening at that time to have a single woman have a lot of land. That kind of challenged things in colonial society. Okay, let's go over some tips really quick for multiple choice questions that you could see. Most likely when it deals with these rebellions that we've just talked about, the answer will focus on tensions or people being unhappy. That's kind of the big idea. Now let's narrow it down a little more. Class tensions and economic tensions could be the answer. Do not forget economic tensions. And also don't forget East versus West, especially when we're talking about Bacon, those Western farmers versus Eastern farmers. And important to know when it comes to slave rebellions, although slaves most frequently resisted by running away. So if you ever see a question about what was the most common form of slave resistance, it is not rebellions. Those are actually rare, although they did happen, such as the Stono, which we talked about, and the Nat Turner and Denmark Vesey ones, which you'll learn about later. I have a video on them as well in case you want to check that out. There were some slave rebellions, but most people resisted by running away. And of course, good luck. You're brilliant. Okay, now, why I threw the Salem witch trials in here, there was a past DBQ topic from the 2003 Form B exam, and it says, compare the ways in which two of the following reflected tensions in colonial society. You have Bacon's Rebellion, the Pueblo Revolt, the Salem witchcraft trials, and the Stono Rebellion. So if you were taking this AP exam in 2003, you saw this. Hopefully after watching this video, you can at least choose two of those and compare them and show how they reflected tensions in colonial society. All right, that is it for me. Thank you very much for watching. Please already, if you have not subscribed to my channel, help spread the word. It means a lot I really want to reach as many people as possible. Take a minute, put this on Twitter, put it on Facebook. You want to pin it? That's cool. Go ahead, do that too. If you have questions, comments, anything, throw them in the comment section. I really appreciate you guys watching. Best of luck to you, and have a good day, guys.